Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on NewsFeed today. TikTok hits 1 billion downloads and is made to pay up big time. IBM have to apologize for an insensitive application form. More warnings about the spread of measles. And the perfect pet. A boy finds a cat with the same unique features as he has. And at the top of our newsfeed, TikTok. The app is more popular than ever and it's growing every minute. And with great power comes great responsibility. So it's perhaps not surprising the app has been hit with a huge fine for the way it hasn't been looking after its youngest users.
I wanna be Winston.
I guess I'll be Genji.
I'm already Genji.
Then I'll be McClane. I'll be Tracer.
I'm already Tracer.
Rock this club down.
All right, let's take a look at some of the other things that caught our eye on social media. Now, this was the launch moment of what's being called the democratization of space. That's a rocket carrying a satellite from a company called OneWeb, which will beam the internet via Wi-Fi to remote parts of the globe. Now, for those of us who live online, it's worth remembering that 3 billion people, that's half the planet, are not connected to the internet. Now, OneWeb plans to eventually have around 2,000 satellites in near-Earth orbit, connecting the other half of humanity who are not online. Cat videos for all. That's real democracy.
There's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult, and it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children?
A new congresswoman in the United States called Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has caused people to froth at the mouth for saying that. She said it during a live chat while discussing the urgent nature of the ecological disaster humanity is facing if we don't make serious changes and try and save the planet that we live on. Now, International Business Machines Corporation, or IBM, has been around for decades, and for a computer firm, the error they made on their job application site is pretty embarrassing. interest in old and easily preventable disease is on the march around the world. Vaccine hesitancy, as the World Health Organization politely called the practice of avoiding giving your kids vaccinations because of conspiracy theories and junk science, is to blame.
Measles is a highly contagious disease, which can lead to pneumonia and brain disorders, and in chronic cases, it can kill. It's considered primarily a childhood illness, but can affect people of all ages. Scientists and health experts are saying children must be vaccinated, not only to protect themselves, but to those around them.
We have a fantastic vaccine against measles. Unfortunately, the vaccine isn't being used to the degree that it needs to be used. Since the year 2000, we've had a massive reduction in the cases of measles and deaths from measles. Unfortunately, we're backsliding now, and we're having an increase in the number of cases, and this is actually a tragedy for families and children.
The spread of measles worldwide is increasing, with outbreaks being reported in developing countries and in populations with low vaccination rates. In Madagascar, 68,000 cases have been reported of the disease, with 553 deaths since September last year. In the Philippines, 12,736 cases have been reported, with 203 deaths since January. Ukraine has had over 18,000 cases since December, and the US with more than 150 cases since January. Meanwhile, in Australia, health authorities are reminding their citizens to get vaccinated before travelling abroad. Anti-vaccine campaigners seek to discourage parents from getting their children immunised, despite strong evidence stating that vaccines are safe and effective. In Toronto, billboards were displayed across the city implying that vaccines are dangerous for children. The signs were called deeply disturbing and potentially dangerous, and are now being removed. And school boards are going a step further in parts of Canada, suspending students who don't have up-to-date immunisation records. So far, over 6,000 students have been told they face suspension. Pressure is also growing on social networks to take action against the development of the anti-vaccine movement. Several networks, including Facebook, Pinterest and YouTube, are responding to the pressure, which they have been accused of enabling.
Unless we act with urgency and act with clarity and with appropriate tactics, the gap in vaccine coverage, which is worsening, is going to drive us in the wrong direction with respect to progress.
It's hoped these efforts will encourage more people to get vaccinated and stop the spread of measles and other preventable diseases.
Now, tension between India and Pakistan is still high, and even though jets are not being shot out of the sky today, no one is feeling that things are getting back to being calm. Now, since a suicide bombing which killed 40 Indian paramilitary members a few weeks back, the crisis has been steadily ratcheting up on both sides. And one place where there have been a no-holds-barred fight is the digital battleground. Fake news and misinformation has been everywhere, and it's been seeping into the consciousness of people in both nations. And that is a dangerous and new wrinkle to a decades of distrust between India and Pakistan. Okay, let's speak to Pratik Sinha. He's the co-founder of Alt News, a fact-checking website that's been debunking some of the misinformation that's been around online. He's been dedicated to this story since it broke. Pratik, good to speak with you. Now, have you been surprised by the amount of misinformation on social media surrounding what's been happening over the past few days?
Not really. This is something we expected. In fact, every time there's a sensitive situation, we always see misinformation, and it varies depending on the sensitivity of the issue. If there's an epidemic, there's misinformation on epidemic. If there's a massive accident, like a train accident or something like that, there's misinformation there. So this is not something that is surprising, especially when it is a matter of India and Pakistan, where the sensitivities are absolutely sky high. So this was something that we had expected, and it has been happening for the past week, ever since there was a terror attack in Pulwama in Kashmir, and the cycle is just rolling on for the past week and a half.
Absolutely. I mean, these nations are now fighting information wars as much as physical ones. Can you see a time, I mean, perhaps very soon, when that digital battle will spill over and spark something in real life happening?
Well, in India, the digital battle has sparked things in terms of riots, etc. I can't say the same thing for diplomatic decisions or decisions concerning the war. But it definitely helps the government. This disinformation campaign. It definitely helps the government to sort of raise this pseudo-nationalism feeling in citizens, where where normal citizens get into this warmongering zone because they are looking at so much disinformation, charred bodies, dead bodies, and all of that. So that is where it helps the government, I believe.
Absolutely. I mean, the government have a responsibility, but of course the social media sites have a responsibility too to try and stop the fake news. But do you think that in the reality we live in, they can't actually keep up with the speed in which this kind of misinformation spreads?
They are not. In India, for example, I don't know if there are similar partnerships in Pakistan, but at least in India, for example, Facebook has fact-checking partnerships with various fact-checking websites. Alt News is not one of those, but they do have about 4 or 5 partnerships. And the problem is that, when misinformation spreads on social media, it is not only on 1 or 2 accounts, it is across thousands and thousands of accounts. And what the fact-checking partners can do is just, spot the major ones. It is for the social media companies to use tech and figure out where else is the same misinformation spreading and take it down, or whatever their policy be. But that is not happening. And at least in the last 2 days, I don't think the social media platforms have done a good job at taking down misinformation.
No, they certainly haven't. But I guess your site is trying to do what it can to try and tackle the misinformation. But do you get a sense that your site isn't able to hit quite as hard when it debunks these things, these false flags that are put out there? Because for some reason, people prefer to listen to the misinformation.
There are 2 things. One, we are a very small site in the sense that we have a bit of a reach, but it is nowhere close to what mainstream media in India does. And mainstream media in India is not doing this as regularly as they should. That is debunking misinformation. That is number 1 issue. And number 2 issue is the velocity that it picks up on, that things pick up on social media. And it is the responsibility of social media companies to arrest that velocity. I mean, misinformation has always been there. What is different now is this velocity that it picks up, and that is purely a function of social media, and they are not doing enough to arrest that velocity.
Okay, it's been around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Thursday. A shooting range in the United Kingdom is using an image of Shamima Begum as a target. Now, when the internet found out, it was very, very upset. The shooting range also has the former UK Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, and the current US President, Donald Trump, as targets that people can pay to shoot at. Shamima Begum stole her sister's passport to go to Syria from the UK to join Daesh. Now that Daesh has been defeated, she wants to go back to the UK. The UK government don't want her back and are trying to strip her of her British citizenship. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia has an innovative plan to raise money to fund renewal works around his city, invite a bunch of rich people to dinner and make them pay $175,000 per head. Now, this is part of the promo video to accompany his plans to beautify Addis Ababa. Abiy Ahmed wants at least $1 billion for the scheme and thinks this dinner plan will go some way to help him pay for it. There's no news yet on what the people will be served. And millions in Uganda have stopped using the internet. The government said they wanted to stop gossip, so they brought in a tax on social media of 200 Ugandan shillings a day for people to access Facebook and WhatsApp. That's about 5 cents. Now the Ugandan Communications Commission say the internet subscriptions are down by 2.5 million. And scientists studying animals in the lowest part of the ocean found them all to contain plastic. It's a worrying discovery and confirms that mankind's production of plastics are now part of the marine ecosystem. The effect of that will be felt by generations to come. Now, the plastics were found in small crustaceans called amphipods. Amphipods are eaten by nearly everything, thereby passing plastic along the food chain till eventually it comes back to us. And last up, we want to introduce you to an Instagram that's warming the hearts of people online. Now, this is Madden and Moon. The little boy is called Madden, and he was born with a cleft lip and eyes that are different colours. And because kids are mean, he was bullied. Then he found Moon, a cat with a cleft lip and eyes that are also different colours. And as you can see, they're now Bezos, and proof, if proof were needed, that animals are sometimes way better than people. And that will be a lot from the NewsFeed team. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter and YouTube, and you can follow me on Instagram. Follow, subscribe and add, and I will see you again tomorrow.